Imagine, for a moment, a small ancient pond hidden deep within a dense forest. A violent storm has just swept through the canopy. The wind howled, the rain lashed down, and the water in the pond was churned into a chaotic, brown mess. The mud from the bottom was whipped up into a frenetic dance, clouding everything. You could not see the fish, you could not see the stones, and you certainly could not see your own reflection. It was just a vortex of confusion. But now, watch as the storm passes. The wind dies down to a whisper. The rain ceases. And then, the magic happens. Slowly, imperceptibly, the heavy particles of mud begin to drift downward. Gravity, in its gentle patience, pulls the debris back to the bed. The water clears, and finally, as the clouds part above, the surface becomes a perfect still mirror, capable of reflecting the bright moon without a single distortion. This image holds the secret we have all been searching for. As the old master Lao Tzu once asked us, "Who can wait quietly while the mud settles? Who can remain still until the moment of action?" My dear friend, most of us spend our entire lives frantically churning the water. We are terrified of what we might see if we simply let the mud settle. We run from the silence as if it were a predator, never realizing that it is the only place where we can finally meet ourselves. We live in an age of constant, suffocating noise. We have built a civilization that seems designed to murder silence. Think of how we move through our days. We wake up and immediately scroll, filling our minds with the lives of strangers before we have even said good morning to our own souls. We get into the car, and the hand instinctively reaches for the radio or the podcast, because the drive alone with our thoughts feels unbearable. Even in the most intimate spaces, while cooking a meal or sitting in the restroom, we need the background hum of a screen. We treat silence like an awkward, unwanted guest that we must drown out at all costs. Why do we do this? Why is the quiet so terrifying? It is because we have been conditioned to believe a lie. We have equated silence with emptiness, and emptiness with worthlessness. We suffer from a modern horror vacui, a fear of empty space. We believe that if we are not producing noise, if we are not consuming data, we cease to exist. But deep down, there is a darker reason. We are scared that if the noise finally stops, the anxiety we have been outrunning for years will catch up to us. We fear that if we gaze into the abyss of a quiet room, the abyss will gaze back, and we won't like what we see. You are tired, my friend. But you are not tired because you are doing too much with your hands. You are exhausted because your inner pond never settles. The mud is always churning. But if you are willing to listen, if you are willing to brave the quiet, there is a cure. Before we walk this path together, I invite you to leave a mark of your presence here. Like this video to help it reach others who are drowning in noise, and subscribe to join our quiet circle. And tell me in the comments below, what is the one thought that gets loudest when everything else goes quiet? I will read your answers. Now, let us begin. This brings us to the first great misunderstanding, the utility of non-being. We live in a world that is obsessed with stuff. We hoard objects, we hoard accolades, we hoard information. We are like sculptors who only care about the clay, forgetting that the art lies in the space around it. Lao Tzu, in the 11th chapter of the Tao Te Ching, offers us a radical shift in perspective. He reminds us that we shape clay into a pot. We toil over its walls and its design, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. The clay is just the boundary. The usefulness lies in the non-being, in the hollow center. Apply this to your own life. Your mind is like that room. If it is filled floor to ceiling with furniture, with your worries about tomorrow, your regrets about yesterday, your strategies for work. There is no space left. A full room cannot welcome a guest. A full mind cannot welcome life. We think we need to add more to solve our problems. More knowledge, more thinking, more talking. But the Tao teaches us that wisdom is a process of subtraction. Silence creates the fertile space where the seeds of clarity can actually undergo maturation. In the West, we have a deep-seated phobia of zero. We see zero as a lack, a failure. But in the East, specifically in the Taoist tradition, we look toward the Wu Wei, the limitless void. This void is not death. It is pure, unmanifested potential. Think of the panic you feel when your phone battery dies while you are waiting for a bus. That rising chest pain, that frantic looking around, that is you standing at the edge of the void. You feel you are losing connection, but in reality, you are being offered a moment of reconnection with the immediate reality around you. That panic is simply the ego realizing it has no distractions left to hide behind. Lao Tzu takes this further with the metaphor of the wheel. He says, 30 spokes share the wheel's hub. It is the center hole that makes it useful. Look at your life, your career, your family duties, your social obligations. These are the spokes. They are necessary. They give structure. But the hub is the silence at the center of your existence. If the hub is solid, if it is clogged with debris, the wheel cannot turn. It jams. It breaks. This is why you feel stuck despite moving so fast. You have too many spokes and no hub. You are all motion and no center. We must also reframe the way we look at boredom. In our frenetic culture, boredom is treated like a disease to be eradicated by entertainment. But in the eyes of the sage, boredom is a threshold. It is the waiting room of creativity. When you feel that itch of boredom, that is the mud beginning to settle. The sediment of your superficial thoughts is sinking. If you reach for the phone, you stir the mud up again. But if you can sit in that discomfort, if you can endure the fasting of the heart, you will find that a subtle, profound idea will naturally surface from the depths. Silence is not empty. It is fecund. It is pregnant with the new. But to inhabit this space, we must confront the adversary that lives between our ears. The noise of the ego versus the sound of nature. Have you ever noticed that there is a narrator in your head who never sleeps? It constantly judges, categorizes, and complains. This coffee is too cold. That driver is an idiot. I look old in this light. We make the mistake of thinking this voice is us. It is not. It is what the Buddhists call the monkey mind, and what Taoists see as the rigid, calcified mind. This internal monologue is a tool that has become a tyrant. It creates a barrier of noise between you and reality. Zhuangzi, the great Taoist storyteller, speaks of a mind that flows like water, reflecting clearly whatever is before it, rather than clinging like a rock. When you look at a tree and immediately think, that is an oak, it looks like the one in my backyard, you haven't truly seen the tree. You've only seen your own thoughts about it. Silence, in this sense, is not just the absence of talking. It is the suspension of judgment. It is the ability to meet the world without immediately labeling it. Look to nature for instruction. Nature is the ultimate master of power, yet it is almost entirely silent in its operations. The sun creates all life on earth, yet it rises without a scream. The roots of a giant redwood push through the soil with immense force, yet they make no sound. As the Tao Te Ching reminds us, to talk little is natural. High winds do not last all morning. Contrast this with the human world. Think of the manager at work who yells, who fills every meeting with buzzwords, who dominates the room. He appears powerful, but his energy is brittle. It dissipates quickly. Now think of the leader who sits quietly, who listens and speaks only when necessary, who actually holds the power, the one who is aligned with the natural way. Noise is often a sign of weakness, a desperate attempt to prove existence. Silence is the resonance of authority. Zhuangzi invites us to listen to what he calls the heavenly piping. Human speech is small, petty, and argumentative. But the heavenly piping is the sound of the Tao blowing through all things. The wind in the hollows of the trees, the hum of the city, the rhythm of your own breath. When was the last time you went for a walk without headphones? When did you last allow the sounds of the world to enter you through osmosis, without trying to block them or interpret them? We make noise because we are addicted to the illusion of control. We talk to steer the conversation. We plan to steer the future. We worry to steer the outcome. But this is fighting against the current. Silence is the ultimate act of surrender. It is returning to the state of Pu, the uncarved block. Simple, honest, potential. Next time you are in a conversation and an awkward silence falls, notice your impulse to fill it. You feel you must save the moment. But what if you didn't? What if you realized that silence is a shared space, a bridge rather than a chasm? By stopping the noise, you stop trying to manipulate the moment, and you finally allow the moment to be exactly what it is. You stop struggling in the water, and you let the mud settle. If we accept that noise is the sickness, what then is the medicine? The Taoists offer a practice that sounds strange to our modern ears. They call it Xinzhai, or the fasting of the mind. When we hear the word fasting, we think of abstaining from food to cleanse the body. But the Master Zhuangzi realized that we are spiritually obese. We gorge ourselves on opinions, on gossip, on plans, on anxieties. We are mentally bloated. And just as a body stuffed with rich food becomes sluggish and sick, a mind stuffed with constant chatter loses its agility. It loses its connection to the vital energy of life. Zhuangzi tells the story of the disciple Wu Wei, who wanted to go and change the world, to fix a corrupt province. But Confucius stopped him. He told him he was not ready because his mind was too full of his own righteousness and strategies. He told him to go and practice the fasting of the mind. Confucius said, "Do not listen with your ears, but with your mind. Do not listen with your mind, but with your spirit, your qi." Listening with the ears is ordinary. It stops at the skin. Listening with the mind is intellectual. It seeks to categorize and argue. But listening with the spirit, that is empty. And because it is empty, it can receive all things. How often do we truly listen? When your partner or your friend is speaking to you, be honest. Are you listening, or are you reloading? Are you receiving their pain, or are you formulating your brilliant counter-argument? We treat conversation like a tennis match, eagerly waiting to smash the ball back. But the sage listens like the ocean receives the river. He does not argue with the water, he accepts it. By becoming this empty vessel, you allow the other person to feel truly heard, perhaps for the first time in their life. This is the highest form of charity. This practice of internal silence is also the only blade sharp enough to sever the roots of anxiety. Anxiety is a parasite that feeds on circular narrative. It needs words to survive. It whispers, "What if I lose my job?" And then the mind replies, "If I lose my job, I lose the house." And then, "If I lose the house, I am a failure." It is a chain of noise. But if you practice Xinzhai, you starve the parasite. When the thought, "I might fail" arises, you do not answer it. You do not argue with it. You simply breathe. You offer it silence. Without the fuel of your engagement, the thought runs out of energy. It sputters and fades into the void. You are not suppressing it. You are simply refusing to feed it. To understand how to navigate the insults and attacks of the world, we must look to the parable of the empty boat. Imagine you are crossing a misty river on a small skiff. Suddenly, another boat comes crashing through the fog and smashes into the side of your vessel. You stumble. You drop your oar. Instantly, a hot flash of rage rises in your chest. You open your mouth to scream at the idiot who steered so carelessly. But then, you look closer. The other boat is empty. There is no helmsman. It is just drifting on the current. Instantly, your anger evaporates. There is no one to blame. You cannot scream at wood and water. My friend, here is the secret. Everyone is an empty boat. The man who cut you off in traffic, he is driven by the currents of his own stress and lateness. The colleague who was rude to you, she is drifting on the storm of a difficult marriage or a sleepless night. They are not steering to hurt you. They are barely steering at all. If you see them as enemies, you will live in a state of constant war. If you see them as empty boats, you remain the vast, unshakable river. You let them pass. You remain intact. This leads us to the physical necessity of this silence. We are a generation that is overtired. We sleep, yes. We crash into our pillows and lose consciousness for 7 hours, but we do not rest. True rest is not just the body lying down. It is the mind laying down its burdens. Taoists call this zhuowang, or sitting in oblivion. It is a state where we disconnect from the sensory overload and return to the root. 10 minutes of conscious, awake silence. Watching the breath, feeling the hands, is more restorative than an hour of fitful, dream-heavy sleep. We must learn to power down the machine before the gears grind themselves to dust. Now, we must transform our understanding. We have spoken of silence as healing, but we must also understand silence as power. In the West, we are taught that to be powerful is to be loud. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. The alpha wolf howls. But the Tao teaches us the inverse. Silence is a weapon. It is the thunder that makes no sound. Lao Tzu wrote, "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." Observe the dynamics of your own workplace or social circle. In a heated meeting, who is the one frantically talking? Who is interrupting, raising their voice, using complex jargon? It is the person who is afraid. They are using noise to cover their insecurity. They are building a wall of words to hide behind. Now, look for the person who is sitting back, the one who is observing. Their body is still. They are not rushing to prove they are smart. They are gathering the energy of the room. And when they finally speak, perhaps just one sentence, the room stops. Everyone leans in. Why? Because their words come from a place of density, not emptiness. They have conserved their qi, while others have scattered theirs. The loud person seeks attention. The quiet person commands it. This is the application of Wu Wei, effortless action in communication. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing. Consider when a child throws a tantrum, or a partner is venting their frustrations in a loop. Our instinct is to jump in, to fix, to correct, to yell back. We add our fire to their fire, and we create an inferno. But what happens if you hold a loving, non-reactive silence? You become a vacuum. You give their fire no oxygen. You look at them with presence, not judgment. Often, they will talk themselves out. run out of steam, and collapse into the safety of your silence. You have managed the situation perfectly by doing nothing. We must also value presence over presentation. In this digital age, we spend hours curating our noise, our profiles, our photos, our captions. We are obsessed with how we are presented, but we have lost the art of being present. The concept of T, often translated as virtue or inner power, is not about moral rules. It is about the charisma of authenticity. It is the person who puts their phone face down at the dinner table and looks you in the eye. That silence, that undistracted focus, is a rare commodity. It tells the other person, you exist. You matter more than the digital cloud. That is a power that money cannot buy. It is the magnetic pull of a soul that is anchored in the here and now. And finally, learn to use the thunder of silence. There will be times when the world tries to corner you. Someone asks an intrusive question. A client makes an unreasonable demand. A peer makes a disrespectful joke. The social contract demands you fill the gap, that you laugh nervously or answer quickly to diffuse the tension. Do not. Pause. Count to 5 in your head. Look them in the eye. Let the silence hang in the air like a heavy curtain. In that gap, the other person is forced to hear the echo of their own words. They become self-conscious. They often stumble to retract or explain themselves. You haven't argued, you haven't fought. You have simply held up the mirror of silence. In the ancient chronicles, emperors would summon Taoist hermits to court, demanding advice. The hermits would often just stand there, silent, until the emperor realized the triviality of his questions. Silence is not passive. It is a roar that shakes the soul. We have spoken of silence as a tool and as a weapon, but ultimately, silence is not something we use. It is something we are. It is our biological and spiritual home. To understand this, we must look at the law that governs every living thing, the cycle of return. In the 16th chapter of the Tao Te Ching, the Old Master writes, "All things flourish, but each eventually returns to its root." Returning to the root is called stillness. This is known as returning to destiny. Look at the natural world. A tree does not bloom all year round. It pushes its energy outward in the spring and summer. It makes noise, it grows leaves, it expands. But in the winter, it draws everything back in. It returns to the dark, silent soil. It rests. This is not death. This is the accumulation of power for the next cycle. We, however, have forgotten this rhythm. We try to live in an eternal summer of productivity. We want to be blooming, talking, and working 24 hours a day. We view the need for rest as a design flaw, a weakness to be overcome with caffeine and willpower. But by refusing to return to the root, by refusing to be silent, we sever ourselves from our destiny. We become brittle, like dry branches that snap in the wind because they have no sap left. This brings us to a vital concept in Eastern thought, the conservation of energy. In traditional Chinese medicine, speech is not free. It costs qi, your vital life force. It is said that excessive speech dissipates the spirit. Have you ever noticed how you feel after a day of non-stop networking or a family gathering where you had to perform socially for hours? You feel hollowed out. You feel physically drained, even if you just sat in a chair. That is your qi leaking out through your mouth. Compare that to a day spent in solitary work or a long walk where you spoke to no one. You return with a chest full of energy. Silence acts as a seal. It keeps the energy circulating within, nourishing your organs, your mind, and your creativity. We must learn to be miserly with our words, spending them only when they can purchase something of value. But how do we maintain this in a chaotic world? We need an anchor. Lao Tzu tells us, "Heaviness is the root of lightness. Stillness is the ruler of movement." Imagine a ship in a hurricane. The waves are the emotions. The wind is the news cycle. If the ship has no anchor, it drifts and crashes. Silence is that heavy iron anchor. When the world starts to spin, when the emails pile up, when the arguments start, you do not need to solve the storm. You need to drop the anchor. You return to the sensation of the breath entering the nostrils. That silent rhythm is the only thing that is real. Everything else is just weather. By anchoring yourself in the stillness of the body, you can watch the storm rage without being swept away by it. And this changes how we relate to being alone. There is a profound difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the pain of being alone. It is a craving to be distracted from oneself. It is the empty house feeling. Solitude, however, is the glory of being alone. It is the sanctuary feeling. The difference lies entirely in your relationship with silence. If you fear silence, you are lonely. If you embrace silence, you are in solitude. The Taoist hermits went into the mountains not to escape reality, but to find it. You must schedule a solitude date with yourself. Not to read, not to watch a movie, but to sit with your own soul as you would sit with a lover, in comfortable, appreciative silence. Now, I can hear the objection rising in your mind. "Grandfather, this sounds beautiful, but I do not live on a misty mountain. I live in a city. I have a boss, I have children, I have bills." The Tao is not afraid of the city. In fact, the ancient texts speak of the great hermit. They say, "The small hermit lives in the mountains. The great hermit lives in the marketplace." To find silence in a monastery is easy. To find it in the middle of a traffic jam is mastery. You do not need a cave of stone. You need a cave in your heart. We build this cave through micro moments of silence. Think of the transitional spaces in your day. The elevator ride up to the office, the walk from your front door to the car, the 3 minutes it takes for the kettle to boil. Usually, we pull out our phones to kill this time. We fill it with the dust of the world. Instead, claim these moments. Stand in the elevator and just feel the ascent. Watch the water boil without impatience. These are the cracks in the concrete where the flowers of the Tao can grow. We must also practice selective hearing. The ancients called the noise of society the red dust, a sensory storm that blinds and chokes us. Today, the red dust is digital. It is the notification, the breaking news, the outrage algorithm. Curating your silence is a spiritual act. It means unfollowing the accounts that scream at you. It means turning off the notifications that demand your attention like spoiled children. You are the guardian of your own consciousness. Do not let the world dump its garbage into your living room. Create a silent digital environment so that when you do engage, you do so with clarity, not compulsion. And when you do speak, practice the soft tongue. Lao Tzu reminds us, the stiff and hard are companions of death. The soft and weak are companions of life. There is a tendency in our culture to speak loud and fast to dominate. Try the opposite. Lower your volume. Slow your cadence. A soft voice forces the other person to lean in. It changes the vibration of the room from a battlefield to a sanctuary. It signals that you are not fighting for territory. You are sharing a truth. Finally, we must look at how we end our day. The transition into sleep is sacred. It is the little death that prepares us for the rebirth of morning. Yet, we crash into sleep, with blue light burning our retinas and the noise of the world echoing in our skulls. Reclaim the last 30 minutes. Let the day dissolve. Turn off the screens. Let the house grow dark. Allow the silence to wrap around you like a heavy blanket. Review the day not with judgment, but with simple observation, and then let it go. Return the mud to the bottom of the pond. My friend, we have walked a long path today. We have looked into the abyss of our own noise and found that the monster we feared was just a shadow. We have learned that silence is not an enemy to be conquered. It is not a void to be filled. It is the womb from which you were born, and the home to which you will eventually return. It is the backdrop of the universe. Without the silence of space, the stars would have no place to shine. Without the silence of the paper, the words would have no meaning. Let us return, one last time, to that image of the muddy pond. Your life is the water, the demands of the world, the job, the money, the status. That is the stick constantly stirring the mud. But you are the vessel. You have always had the choice. You can stop stirring. You can wait. You can trust that if you simply sit still, the gravity of your own wisdom will pull the debris down. The clarity you are frantically searching for out there is already waiting for you in here, beneath the noise. Tonight, do not rush to fill the quiet. Invite it in. Sit with it. It might feel heavy at first, like an old friend you haven't seen in years, one you have neglected. There may be tears. There may be memories. Let them come. For in that silence, once the mud has settled and the water is clear, you will hear the only voice that has ever truly mattered, your own. The Tao speaks in silence. Are you finally listening?